This past year has been a great one for films about President Carter. First came Jimmy Carter, Rock and Roll President, directed by Mary Wharton. Her film is really rich with interviews and performances by a constellation of stars, including the Allman Brothers, Willie Nelson, Bob Dylan, Trisha Yearwood, and many more. It's amazing. And then another great documentary debuted last month at the Atlanta Film Festival. This one's called Carterland, directed by Georgia-born brothers Will and Jim Pattiz. Carterland highlights President Carter's remarkable vision and accomplishments during his time in the White House. I'll let Mary Wharton and the Pattiz brothers and our moderator, Emmy Award-winning veteran journalist Kane Farabaugh, tell you all about it. But first, let's hear from a special friend of the Carter Center.
Hey everybody, Stephen Colbert here. Just wanted to give a virtual hello to your virtual meeting and to thank President Carter and former First Lady Rosalynn Carter and all the wonderful contributors and supporters to the Carter Center for the work you've done over the last 40 years and over the last 15 months, whether it's continuing to eradicate guinea worm or to work hard to make sure that there are free and fair elections around the globe, and this year, especially in Georgia. Please don't stop doing that. Ever.
Hi, I'm Kane Farabaugh, and it's exciting for me to be able to have this opportunity to bring to you some interesting conversations with some groundbreaking filmmakers who have been at the forefront in trying to tell the previously unknown stories of President Jimmy Carter, his life, his administration, and his work around the globe. With me here today, we have Mary Wharton, who is the director of Jimmy Carter, Rock and Roll President, and we have Jim and Will Pattiz, who are the directors and producers of Carterland. Mary, I'm going to start with you, and I really want to sort of just dive into how did you come about with this idea that you were going to tackle this, what seems like a massive project to be able to show and encompass all of the music that helped influence and launch Jimmy Carter's career?
Well, it's interesting because when we first heard about this aspect of President Carter's life, I only heard a tiny kind of germ of it. This was an interesting opportunity to sort of get people to look at him in a different light. And hopefully, you know, we weren't trying to set the record straight or, you know, beat anyone over the head with, you're wrong about President Carter. But we just hoped that it might make people reconsider their notions of him and what he was able to accomplish as president.
Well, Will and Jim, I want to turn to you right now because Mary just touched on something which is basically the very beginning of your documentary. Walter Mondale has a quote in which, you know, the story about Jimmy Carter goes something like this, and it is about him being effectively a misunderstood or perhaps a misrepresented commander-in-chief. So maybe tell me about how that influenced your approach to Carterland.
Yeah, absolutely. So our premise is kind of tackling just whereas Mary's film is wonderful. It kind of captures what I would say is chapter one, where you kind of see how he becomes president through all these rock and roll figures. What our film does is we really try to tackle those specific 4 years that he was president and say, you know, look, he accomplished a lot more than a lot of people give him credit for.
There's so much more to this man as president than people know, and so we started to explore this idea of a feature film on President Carter, specifically on his presidency. And at first we were, you know, looking at it from a conservation angle, and then we realized there was just so much more to be told here. And as Will said, you know, you have a lot of young people in this country who are looking for answers out there, and to see that we had a president in the 1970s that had the answers, you know, that was putting solar panels on the roof of the White House, and that was addressing, you know, a lot of the problems that we're only just, you know, beginning to confront now. He was trying to address these problems in the 1970s.
We really saw how America had an opportunity in that moment, and we lost it. And I think that, you know, a lot of that comes from the fact that Jimmy Carter was a truth teller, and he told America the truth even when they weren't ready to hear it.
You know, it was a very close election between Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter in 1976. Did these musical celebrities influence the outcome of that election?
I think it did. I think that, you know, from what I understand, a big part of what helped Carter win was that he was able to mobilize a lot of young people to vote for him. And the young people were definitely influenced by the fact that he was quoting Bob Dylan lyrics at the convention, in his convention speech and in his stump speeches. And I think they were, you know, motivated by the fact that, you know, their heroes like the Allman Brothers and like, you know, Jimmy Buffett or whomever else were supporting him publicly. It was a signal to young people at that time who were very disillusioned by what had happened with Watergate. They were, you know, not happy about the Vietnam War. They were not happy with the Nixon administration, and they were looking for change, and they were looking for the truth. And that's something that Jimmy Carter represented.
Yeah, and Mary and Kane, if I might, it's interesting because Carter was connecting with young people back when he was running for president. Pretty interesting. We're talking back in the 1970s, and now it's what's fascinating to me. And in this film, I mean, Jason Carter's grandson is in our film, and he kind of talks about, he has this line where he says, President Carter was basically the first millennial president. And so I think it's a fascinating thing. He was relevant with young people back then, and I think hopefully if people watch your film, if they watch our film, they'll kind of see that, man, he really is kind of a millennial guy. He stands for a lot of things we care about still.
The documentaries are ostensibly about President Jimmy Carter, but they are as much about Rosalynn Carter as they are about Jimmy Carter.
Rosalynn Carter, as Jason Carter says in our film, is the best politician in the family. And she advises President Carter on all these things. And in fact, she told President Carter that the Panama Canal really should wait to the second term because it was going to cost him a lot of votes. That was the right thing to do politically. But obviously, President Carter wasn't interested in what was the right thing to do politically. He was interested in what's the right thing for America right now.
I want you to tell me, what do President and Mrs. Carter personally mean to you after having gone through this journey of making this film?
So to me, it's a story of tremendous courage, and one that should be idealized as Georgians and also Americans.
There's a depth to President and Mrs. Carter that I think people really need to see. You know, seeing these people who honesty and morality are central to who they are, and they never compromised on their beliefs throughout their entire political lives, and that's something that is extremely difficult to do.
The film is really kind of a love letter to the power of music. Music is the language of the heart, and I think that was one thing that I learned about President Carter in this project, was how very open his heart is.
Jim and Will Pattiz are the directors and producers of Carterland. Mary Wharton is the director of Jimmy Carter, Rock and Roll President. It has been my deepest pleasure being able to discuss all things Carter with you guys today, and I hope that everybody else who's been able to see this takes away something that didn't know previously, and maybe will hopefully be able to catch when they watch these films. Thanks you guys for participating.
Thanks, Kane.
Thanks, Kane.
Thank you so much for having me.